So AOC has a message for Republicans who she believes are trying to co-opt faith. Now, in a recent tweet, she lashed out and said, quote, "Sick and tired of Republicans who co-opt faith as an excuse to advance bigotry and barbarism." Now, I'm going to come back to barbarism in a minute, but she went on to say, quote, "Fact is, if today Christ himself came to the floor of Congress and repeated his teachings, many would malign him as a radical and eject him from the chamber." Now, I've got to be honest with you, there is a lot of irony here. But first and foremost, before we even get there, people on both sides of the aisle have tried to co-opt faith, and they do it with every issue because this is politics. It's dirty, it's awful, and you try to score votes with different groups. But let's make something very clear. While we're throwing stones here, there is only one side of the aisle that has actually grappled with trying to eject God from the platform. And it's actually the Democrats, the side that AOC is on. If you'll remember, in 2012, the Democratic Party removed God and then put God right back into the platform once people freaked out. And at the 2020 DNC, One Nation Under God was removed during meetings with groups who were allied to the party. And sure, these were anecdotals, but the brushstrokes come together to paint what I would say is a pretty troubling picture. And it doesn't end there. You've had senators who create litmus tests. They've told Catholic judicial nominees that the dogma lives loudly within them and that this is a concern to them. You know, when you have Russell Voigt, a nominee for Deputy Director of the Office of Management and Budget, who actually went on to take that position, but a couple years ago when he was up for it, he was told by Senator Bernie Sanders that his faith perspective means that he's, quote, "really not someone who is what this country is supposed to be about." This is a litmus test. And you have to wonder how anyone can say what AOC said and do it with a straight face. Now, let me be clear. I'm not going to say that Jesus was a Republican or a Democrat, but we have some facts that we have to grapple with. First and foremost, Republicans are much more likely than Democrats to actually say they are Christians. 82% of people who lean Republican or who are Republican identify as Christians, as opposed to 63% of those who lean Democrat. Now, the same thing happens with church attendance and a whole bunch of other indicators. And I want to just point out, AOC is right about a couple of things. She said Jesus called us to love others, and that includes our enemies. I agree. That he called us to care for those in need. I agree. These are the fruits of the Christian heart. And anyone who is a solid Christian Bible believer, and yes, this includes the Republicans who are mostly Christian in Congress and who somehow she believes would be thrown out of the chamber, or would throw Jesus out rather. But here's the harsh reality. Jesus also called us to some other things. To follow his will, to die to ourselves, to go and sin no more, and to honor life. And that includes the lives of the unborn. So while we're on the topic of barbarism, it's hardly a stretch to note that killing babies in the womb is morally wrong. And it's completely rejected by the side who AOC is targeting. And here's the crazy thing. There is no world in which Jesus would march into that chamber and champion the perspective that innocent unborn children, the very lives that are made in his image and created by his miraculous design, should be killed at will. I mean, sure, Republicans, like Democrats, they've got some policies that are wrong, because here's the thing, we're all sinful and not every human construct is going to be based on moral perfection. But there's some other issues I took with what she said. She also said, quote, "The only time religious freedom is invoked is in the name of bigotry and discrimination." This is an insane oversimplification. It does such a disservice to the discussion at hand. Many of the very people she is targeting, they argue for their rights to religious conscience because we have a First Amendment. But these people are advancing religious freedom abroad. They are routinely speaking about all sorts of issues pertaining to Jesus and to freedom. They're opening their wallet to help the poor. I mean, these are such silly and unfounded claims, and I could go on and on, but the fact is that far too many people are trying to remake Jesus into their own image today. Neither party holds policies that are wholeheartedly Christian, but AOC's comments are so detached from reality and tone deaf, especially when it comes to the spiritual weaknesses in the very party to which she belongs. But yet she thinks the Republicans, they're going to boot Jesus out. They're the ones more likely to abide by his teachings. And so let's stop this. Let's have real conversations about the issues at hand, about religious freedom, about religious liberty, and about equal rights. Let's have that conversation, but let's do it with truth and with goodwill.